Hello everyone and welcome to the Outer Rim Cantina. My name's Alan and today I wanted to talk about the latest round of drama surrounding the Rey Skywalker new Jedi Order movie that's currently in production at Lucasfilm to be released in the next few years. People have dug up some old interviews and panels of the film's director, Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy, and are using them to attack her film as a whole, already branding the movie as a woke Disney flop. Of course, unsurprisingly, the driving force behind these attacks on social media are fragile white men who think their nerd fandom is suddenly being threatened by a Pakistani woman directing a Star Wars film. Truly shocking to no one, these unhinged crybabies are lashing out at Sharmeen because she hates men and fills her movies with woke activism. Now, the evidence to support these attacks is from a couple of old interview clips going around in which Sharmeen talks about her work as a filmmaker and her creative process. The most popular one being spread around is a clip from an 8-year-old Women in the World panel.
What is the balance of activating a force for change, but also trying to permeate that patriarchy, that power structure, and is that a part of the calculation of your art as well, and what's been the reaction to that?
Oh, absolutely. I like to make men uncomfortable. I enjoy making men uncomfortable. Not you, just not you. Not you.
Point taken, point taken.
But, it is important to be able to look into the eyes of a man and say, I am here, and recognize that. And recognize that I am working to bring something that makes you uncomfortable, and it should make you uncomfortable because you need to change your attitude. And it's only when you're uncomfortable, when you're shifty, when you have to have difficult conversations that you will perhaps look at yourself in the mirror and not like the reflection. And then say, maybe there is something wrong with the way I think, or maybe there is something wrong with the way I am addressing this issue.
People have taken that clip and run with it to spin a narrative that she hates men and is going to turn Star Wars into some kind of girly, lame franchise that guys can't possibly enjoy anymore because it's just so woke and feminine. But let's take a look at the context of the clip itself, which no one wants to share since it doesn't fit their narrative.
But then, Sharmeen, you deal in sort of more bearing witness, not recreating a mindset and a memory, but the actuality then of the continuum of the struggle as it happens in present day. And how does that change the way you view it through the lens and how you're capturing it? You're not recreating something, you're in the moment.
I have to say that it's tough because you have to live and breathe that reality with those people that you are filming, often for years. Their reality becomes your reality. Their nightmares become your nightmares. And it becomes very hard to take yourself out of that situation at the end of the film. Because, you know that their reality may continue to be the same, whereas yours will change. I've often worked with men and women who risk their lives every day to make a community's life better, to make other people's lives better. And sometimes by shining a light on them, we highlight and amplify their voice. But sometimes when we leave, they have to face risks that come with having their voices amplified. And that's a risk as a filmmaker you take upon yourself as well. So it's rewarding because sometimes you put work out there and the lives of those that you have filmed become better. But sometimes you take big risks personally by telling their stories, and also you have to deal with your own demons when that film is done, because you witnessed and been part of something that is often hard to move past or forget.
Let's take a look. Your most recent film, I believe, this is a woman, you're following her as she is trying to improve working conditions for indentured servants and people. Is that what we're about to see? Do you want to set it up?
Yes, Saida Fatma is, in my eyes, a warrior, a woman who rescues entire families from bonded laborers. And here she is taking on a man who employs people and actually really treats them like slaves.
But how do you counsel that individual? Is that individual emboldened by the camera? Do you offer a bit of veil of protection there? And when it's removed, does that make her more vulnerable? Or is this the activism as it happens?
This is the activism as it happens. And I think it's very important to highlight that, because very often we see women in my part of the world as victims, as women who are mistreated. You know, we need to have heroes. We need to have strong, brave women, and we need to have their voices amplified.
Right.
You know, I have two daughters. I need my daughters to have heroes in Pakistan from my part of the world. And I need to amplify their voices. I'm doing it very selfishly, I have to say, because these are the women who you never hear about. And when you do bring their voices to the fore, other people will be tempted to walk in their footsteps, will see that there are people who are opening doors. So in some way, I'm hoping that by highlighting all of this, by putting my camera out there, that I am creating heroes for the next generation in my part of the world.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you, last year I began working on a television show that brought stories like this in Pakistan, and men were uncomfortable with some of the issues that we were talking about, extremely uncomfortable. But they started having those difficult conversations. And I think that if more men and women started doing that, looking, you know, in the eyes of people and saying, well, this is the reality, accept it. I come from a country which sometimes thinks that I'm a traitor because I talk about issues that shouldn't be talked about, that these are the issues that should be swept under the carpet. So you will see a lot of rants about me on social media, and that is part and parcel of who I am, and sometimes that used to bother me. But one day I realized that it should be my strength, not my weakness. And the reason it should be my strength is because obviously I am making someone very uncomfortable. And it's only when you make someone uncomfortable that they're forced to tweet about you, you know? So I think that's important. And I now put all the naysayers to one side because I know I have a mission. And I know what I want to do. And those voices, just their volume just needs to be toned down.
As you can see, none of what she said 8 years ago has anything to do with Star Wars. Her "make men uncomfortable" quote was about men in positions of power and authority who belittle, abuse, and degrade women, specifically women of color and Pakistani women. And guess what? Most of that happens to be what all of these white internet chuds are doing. She was referring to them, not to, I don't know, normal people. She's a documentary filmmaker. Her goal is to make real, meaningful changes in people's lives and do everything she can through her activism to help those less fortunate than her. Of course, a bunch of middle-aged white guys on the internet wouldn't be able to grasp that. Most of them have never had to face any real adversity in their lives, so they have to make up bullshit like their identities as nerds are being attacked by women of color just to feel something and gain internet points. At the end of the day, none of them care about the context or even quality of Sharmeen's work itself. They just care about manufacturing outrage to generate rage-bait clicks on their videos. They profit off of making and keeping people angry over nothing, when real atrocities are happening all over the world, like the ones Sharmeen features in her documentaries. Another problem people have with Sharmeen, other than her being the first woman of color to direct a Star Wars movie, which yes, is important by itself, is that her filmography mainly consists of documentary work. Something a lot of people seemingly don't realize is that you have to know how to craft and tell a story with a documentary, just like a piece of fictional work. Documentary storytelling is vastly more challenging than fictional storytelling because you aren't just making something up to fit a narrative. In a documentary, you are piecing together real lives, real people, and real events to tell a real, engaging, meaningful story from start to finish. So, the fact that she comes from a background of making award-winning documentaries should excite people. She's proven herself that she knows how to craft a real, genuine story. On top of that, she's not writing the new Jedi Order movie, she's directing it. And having her behind the camera means that she is going to treat every single page of that script with as much reverence as she treats her documentary subjects.
think at the heart of everything, I am a storyteller and an activist. And my body of work over the last 20 years has been guided by my activism. And every single piece of work that I've ever created has a piece of activism in it. It could be very overt or it could be covert, but it is there. And I think that as a storyteller, I'm not sure if all of you know this, but I'm not a trained filmmaker. So I never went to film school. I went to Smith College and did my undergraduate and studied economics and political science like a good Pakistani girl. And then I did my graduate studies, but also in international politics. And so I am an accidental filmmaker.
And let's not forget about the activism, that big, mean, ugly word that has internet chodes in basements everywhere, cowering in their gaming chairs. Star Wars has always been about activism. Since the very beginning, it has been about anti-war, anti-imperialist activism. The entire original trilogy was one big activist piece on why the US was the bad guys in the Vietnam War. The prequels were one big activist piece on the failings of the US government. Star Wars is activism, and Sharmeen understands that, but a lot of fans don't. Sharmeen understands the core of what Star Wars was built upon, the politics behind it, why it is such a cultural phenomenon. And she understands that it's time for Star Wars to have a different perspective than just another white dude. So no, Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy is not going to ruin Star Wars. She doesn't hate men, she's not going to turn the franchise woke. She's going to give us a fresh take on a classic story. She's going to expand Star Wars beyond the perspective of a bunch of old white guys and create an entirely new set of heroes and stories for an entirely new generation of fans. I hope that clears some things up. I'm personally very excited about the new Jedi Order movie. We're finally going to move past the Skywalker saga into an entirely new chapter of a galaxy far, far away, and I think it's going to be awesome. If you like the video and want even more Outer Rim Cantina content, subscribe and check out the links down below for our podcast where we talk all things Star Wars, and check us out on social media. That's all the time I've got for today. I hope to see you back here in the cantina next time for another Star Wars video. Until then, may the Force be with you.